This is Amy, and you're listening to the Talkin' Appalachian podcast. Welcome to Season 3 of the Talkin' Appalachian podcast. If you've been listening from the beginning, thank you for sticking with me. And if you've discovered the podcast sometime in the past 2 years, then welcome. And I'm tickled to be in your ear wherever you listen. I have so much good content this season that I'm looking forward to sharing with you, beginning with author and Southern social media sensation Landon Bryant of Landon Talks. If you'd like more of the Talkin' Appalachian podcast, join me over on Patreon, where you'll get early access to episodes like this one, bonus content, a newsletter, and more. In fact, paid subscribers will get a bonus interview with Landon Bryant over on Patreon, where we'll talk about everything he's wanted to ask about Appalachia. Let's discuss. These two words began the viral sensation that is the sharp-witted, down-home, Mississippi-born Landon Bryant. If you're on social media, chances you've seen one of his reels, which is where I first heard of Landon. If there's one thing he knows, it's the South. His anthropological dissections of customs and traditions celebrating all things Southern are a mix of humor, history, and head nodding. I love Landon's take on all things Southern, but I particularly enjoy his reels about words and expressions. So I was excited when his debut book came out titled, here it is, Bless Your Heart, a field guide to all things Southern. And I wore my pearls today in honor of this book. So welcome to the Talkin' Appalachian podcast, Landon.
Well, thank you so much. What an introduction. I'm so honored to be here. I love your work, and I'm thrilled to see you have my book in your hands. I think language is so much fun, and I'm thrilled to get to be here talking to you about it today.
You're from Laurel, Mississippi, so you're from deep
I
South.
am. I'm from the South. I don't think it's not a border town. We're like in the South for sure.
And you were an art teacher before you became a
I
hit on
was.
social media, right?
I was in a public school pre-K through sixth grade art teacher at a public school of the arts. It was a wonderful, wonderful little school. And I think I learned a lot from there. And it's why I can do what I do today.
Yeah. So that was just a natural progression into a different kind of creativity, I guess.
Definitely. Like if you can hold the attention of 4-year-olds for an hour, you can kind of hold the attention of the internet, And I started making the videos after, like literally right after my 4-year-old class would leave. That was my only break before recess would start, and recess was right outside my window. So I don't know if y'all know about kids in recess, but they just go holler, not even words, they just go scream. So I had like a 15-minute window right after my 4-year-old. So I think I was already in the mindset of like, let's be kind and let's be nice. And that translated over into the videos, and I'm really glad.
Yeah, and it works so well. So what do people around Laurel think of all the attention?
Well, Laurel is a small town where everybody knows everybody, right? And everybody's in everybody's business. So it's more just like, oh, look at him, what he's doing. It's not as celebrity as you would feel like it is. Oh, really, I guess the best way to describe it, and if you're from a small town, you probably understand this. I'm 4 generations deep in this town on both sides of my family and even my wife's family. And so I've always known the moment I go outside, there's a report. Somebody's going to be reporting back to my dad, back to my daddy, and tell him where I was and what I was doing. So it kind of isn't really very different as far as that goes. Like I already would have to speak to everybody in the town. I'd already have to say hello to everybody. So it's kind of just now I just have to wonder, do I actually know them, or do they just know me? So I just treat everybody the same and continue on.
Yeah, I can relate because I'm from a very small town in Southwest Virginia, 4 generations,
Then
5 generations deep. Yeah, whether it's at the beauty salon or the unspoken prayer request that you talk about at church, something's going on. Yeah.
Oh, I think that is like a tool that people could use. Like if you were going to move into a town, you could, and it's something you need to consider because there's two sides to it. But you could be the star of the town if you say you've got an unspoken prayer request, because we're all going to be investigating immediately. Like, who is this? What are they doing? What are they talking about?
What is it about?
We have to know. Like we've got to know. So if you want people investigating you, you could show up to the beauty shop and say you got an unspoken prayer request, and
now we want to pray
do well.
We want to pray for you too, but we want to know what it's
oh
about.
yeah, we'll get to that too, but also
I wanted to talk about maps first. And I know that's a little crazy, but
Oh, fun.
Appalachia is so, it's so strange because generally, people go by the federal map of Appalachia, which extends
Mhm.
all the way up into New York and all the way down into Mississippi. The federal map does, and
Right.
it's the political map that's tied to money. Then you have the geographical map that follows the Appalachian Plateau, and it does not
Mhm.
extend that far. And then you have the perceptual map, right, which is cultural Appalachia. And we say, well, it starts maybe around here, maybe around Western Pennsylvania, and maybe ends around Northern Alabama. I'm wondering, I know you can't speak for all of Mississippi, but I'm
Right.
wondering if anybody in that northern section recognizes that part of Mississippi as being part of Appalachia.
I love to have this conversation, and I bring it up a lot because of the map you're talking about where Appalachia extended down into Mississippi. That blew my mind because I feel like a lot of the culture that I experienced growing up from my great grandparents and stuff is really rooted in Appalachia. And I don't know if they're from there. I only really know like back to my great great grandparents. And so I don't know if it came from there or if it just Appalachian culture was so strong that it just spread culturally.
Mm-hmm.
But I just relate so much to a lot of the things that I hear. Now, I do know there's a lot of differences. Like there's a whole lot of differences, but I do think Mississippi was very impacted by Appalachian culture, at least the like eastern and northern side of it. That map ends a county over from where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And the my wife has an aunt from that county, and she says things like it smells like Kjarn and
Yarn.
Aswani, like that's where I've heard that the most and those kinds of things. So I feel like there's definitely some influence there. I don't know any Mississippians personally who are like I am Appalachian, but I'm not in the northeastern
Mm-hmm.
part of the state as
Right.
much as there's not really much up there for me to be there,
Yeah.
you know? So I haven't really spent that much time up there, but the influence is there for sure. Whether people admit
Yeah.
it or not, it's definitely influenced. And I know it's not pure Appalachia, but definitely influenced by it
Yeah. Well, language comes and goes as people do.
for
We say
sure.
that over and over. It moves with people. But that's one of the things that fascinated me when I started following you on Instagram. I know you're on a lot of places. And when I read your book, which is so good, I laughed out loud. I really did in
I
so
love
many
that.
places. I was nodding. I was like, I told my mom, I was like, you're going to read this next because you're
I
going to
love
love
that.
it. You're going to love it. But so many of the words and expressions, and you even reference Appalachia a couple of places in
Mhm.
the book. So many of these words, I would not have thought somebody in Mississippi would be using. And that's naive of me as somebody with a linguistic background because I know that language is not that simple. But still, that's what fascinates me, I think.
And I'm fascinated by it. It's the thing I like and most curious about this whole. There's so many branches to whatever adventure this is that I'm on right now, but the Appalachian language is really something that I really get into. And then the conversation around even how to say Appalachia, like because Dolly Parton says Appalachian, and that's confusing. And then the Pennsylvania Dutch Appalachian
Mm-hmm.
application of that was
Mm-hmm.
surprising to me. I love to learn all that, but we also it's like sort of tradition in Mississippi in a lot of families to come to the mountains. Like we would come to the mountains every year, not being part of the culture necessarily, but you
Mm-hmm.
you definitely spend a week or two in the mountains every year as somebody from Mississippi. That's a typical thing to do. Like I climbed Mount LeConte every year growing up and stayed there at the lodge up there. And so the cultures are very similar. They're very similar. The way that we treat each other hospitality wise is so similar, it seems like to me.
Mm-hmm.
The way you can't refuse food if you came to an Appalachian home
Yeah.
or a Mississippi home. It's also so similar and so much
Yeah.
fun. But there are things that are Appalachian that are not that I don't recognize sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So we go to the beach in Appalachia. Most people go to the beach
Right.
for vacation, or Dollywood is your daycation. Where I am anyway, you can go there and back in a day. Also, the weekend, Dollywood is the weekend thing. So
It's a great place.
it
I
is a
love it
wonderful
there.
place.
And
Yeah,
it's just so wonderful. It's like such a great place. It's beautiful. It's stunning. Dolly is wonderful. I got to see her there last time I was there.
she's
It was
wonderful.
really something.
Yeah,
I saw
we
her
love
arm
Dolly.
sparkling off the side of the stage with sequins, and I was like, there she is.
I want to
It's
see her in
a
concert
moment.
one of these days with her sparkly
One
guitar.
day.
And yeah, one
One
day.
day.
Okay, so I thought we would talk about some of the expressions and words that overlap between, because Appalachia
I
is
love
in the
that.
South, and I know that you and Andy Marie Tillman have covered some of these. I
And
was
that was so
watching you,
fun.
I was laughing. Wasper and Chester drawers are classics in Appalachia.
The classics. And I loved talking to her because I haven't heard Wasper since my great grandmother said would
Mm,
used to say that. And then Chester drawers, I really thought he was a
yeah.
significant furniture man, you know?
I grew up saying Wasper. I didn't even know it was any different until probably when I was an adult.
Well, I'm
That's
surprised
just
in the
what I
comments
knew.
when people don't recognize that. Some places all over the South, they don't recognize it. It surprises me because it's just like regular. It sounds regular to me, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
I love realizing something is not something used everywhere.
Yeah. So a word that I talked about just the other day on social was common. Common or pedestrian is another way that I think you put it in your book.
Oh yeah.
And so we use common also to mean unwell. So like if you eat
Oh.
those leftovers that have been in that Cool Whip container for about a week, you're going to feel right common in the morning. So that's another way that we use common.
I have never heard it that way. I love that.
Yes.
We've always used it to mean as kind of like a more pedestrian than that, but I like that. And you will if you eat the thing in the country crock container
Yes.
left over a week later.
And
You
you don't
will
know what it
feel.
is. Yeah, exactly. Another one, I think I saw you mentioned wash with the R in the middle.
Yes.
Do people say
Yes.
that?
My grandmother and my great grandmother both said wash, and I don't know if it's something they're not really like leaning into it for the entertainment value to us, you know. Like I think they really did say that they would be hanging out the wash or they were having a washing day, and it just sounds regular to hear them say it. I am not really a wash. If I
Mm,
say it, I'm being a little bit more hyperbolic, you know. But I
mhm.
definitely grew up hearing them talking about the wash and hanging out the wash and the whole thing. That it was just how they sounded, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a very Appalachian thing. It's particularly in central Appalachian, but it goes all the way up to western Pennsylvania. That artfulness, it's in the Pittsburghese dialects. And
Wow.
all the Appalachian states, West Virginia is the only one that's entirely in Appalachia. So in Virginia,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yes, so you've got the flatland side and the beach side. You've got Northern Virginia, which is near Washington, D.C., and that's very urban. Then you've got the Appalachian side. So you might as well have three different states there. But nobody
Wow.
else in Virginia beyond the Appalachian region uses that artfulness. So, in fact, they dropped the R, and that's
Wow.
a lot of migration patterns factor into that from the
And
settlement.
I've been in North and South Carolina recently, and the R's were dropped there
Yeah.
as well.
Yes,
So
they do
that
drop their
lines up.
R's. And the artfulness is also in rent. I heard you all saying
Yes.
rent. I love that with the T on the end. Yeah,
It just feels better, right? And
it
that one's one
does.
that that one's still in pretty popular lexicon here. People will say rent and not think about it as like a different thing. I do associate that with my grandparents, but just feels better, you know?
Yeah,
Like
it does feel
it
better.
it gives it a little bit more than just ruined, you know?
Yeah.
If it was just ruined, then that's fine, right? But if it was burnt,
Yeah.
then we've got another level of it.
Here's a good Scottish word, poke for paper bag. Have you heard that one?
Okay. No, I've heard of a poke cake, but
Toad at
not a
home in a
poke as a
poke.
paper
Yeah,
bag.
you toad it in
Okay,
a
well,
poke.
this brings us to an interesting part of the conversation. I don't mean to derail it, but I recently, the Andy Marie podcast video,
Hmm.
in that video, in the comments section on TikTok, there were a bunch of people from the Scottish Highlands and from that area
Hmm.
saying, I understood every word of this, or wow, there's so much overlap in our two languages. And that's the first time I've ever, I mean, I knew like when I ask where we're from, they're always like, well, we're probably from like the Scotland area, like that type of a
Hmm.
thing. But that surprised me. There
Yeah.
was seems to be a lot of overlap between the two
Yes,
cultures.
there is. And the Appalachian dialects in particular were sort of shaped by the Scots Irish and the English, but a lot of the Scots Irish infusion. Yeah. And
Fascinating.
that's
I'd
that's
love
that's
to
what
learn
got me
that.
interested in
Hmm.
language. But that's a Scottish word that older generations
Wow.
still use. My mama would say, get a poke out of the laundry room and go get you some apples." And
Do
for
you think that's
bag.
where poke cake comes from? Because
I
poke
don't
cake's kind
know.
of
I've
like
never
a
heard of a.
well, it's like a mix of everything, kind of a cake. Like you kind of dump it all in there, and even like would poke your finger down in and let juices of the berry drip down in it. So
Oh.
it'd be like you would gather a bunch of berries or gather a bunch of ingredients and make a poke cake.
Or is it made from poke berries? I don't know if you can eat poke berries.
I know all these things to find out. I never will run out of content, you know.
No, you won't. Library for library. That's a phonetic thing.
That's
Yeah.
very fun. I love our relationship with ours. Like either we're going in real hard with it or we're
Hmm.
dropping it entirely.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll go hard with one and drop the other in the same
Yeah.
word. And it can be the library for sure.
Library is hard to say anyway, so we might as well
Too
make it
many
simple.
R's.
Do you have an excerpt from the book you wanted to share?
Well, I love the what is the South section. I would love to read that, a little bit of
Okay.
that part. I won't read the whole thing, but so all the other topics were things that I had really understood very well, and it was things that I had spoken about in videos or I've like really focused on like content. But when they asked me to, they were like, "We need you to define the South." That was a challenge, and I probably spent more on that than any other part of it. So I guess let's read a little bit of that. So in the What is the South chapter, talk about it geographically because there's like definitions of that, which I think are a little bit I think it's Southern is a state of mind, but
It is.
here's what I said. I said the South is a lifestyle as much as it is a place. The South is sweet tea, screen porches, and blazing hot sun. It's visiting your neighbor and being offer forced to the best versions of homemade treats. It's sitting on the porch shelling peas with your great grandma. It's being sent outside till supper time. The South is drinking from a water hose after you ate all the blueberries you could pick. It's muscadines and pockets stained with dewberries. It's honeysuckles and lightning bugs and watermelon with sometimes salt. It's an identity unlike any other that melts into every part of a Southerner's life and soul. It seeps into how we speak, how we eat, how we celebrate, love, play, and grieve, which also makes it an easy target for misunderstandings, stereotypes, and complications. And then I go on to discuss all of those. But I just really enjoyed trying to figure out what the South is, and that's what the South is to me, like all those, it's a front porch and sweet tea and honeysuckles.
Yeah. Storytelling and for
Storytelling
me,
and
it's all of that for me too. And when I think, I think about we're river people. A lot of us are river people, and it's baptisms in the river, and it's
yes,
breaking green beans on the front porch, and
so much of that.
working in tobacco, and we say backer when we talk about tobacco, so
Wow.
a lot of it just has to do with what section you're from, but it is a state of mind. It's an identity, I think.
I think so too. And it's an identity that comes from togetherness. I feel like it's
Yeah.
being together with your people.
Yeah, and that's why maps are so hard. It's just so hard to define it from maps
Oh, for sure.
alone.
I've learned so much about that in doing whatever this is that I do now. When I first started, like, especially even when I first started writing the book, if there hadn't been editors and publishers none of them were Southern, they were all from other places. And I'm very glad because if they had not been that way, I would not have had to explain a lot of the things that are in the book, and it would have turned into a specifically like Jones County, Mississippi guide to the South because that's what I know, and because they were involved, it had to expand and be a little bit more academic and explain a lot more things. And I'm really glad for that because you could write entire books about a community, even not a county. Like there's communities that are so different all over the South and then all up through there. It's just a very varied place. But I think what we do have in common is our attitudes towards each other, I think.
For sure. Let's do some rapid fire questions, Southern
Fun.
and Appalachian. And I'm just going to give you a word and what comes to mind when I give you the word, okay?
Okay.
Food.
Cornbread.
I was going to say cornbread. And
It's-
soup beans and cornbread and milk.
Cornbread and milk. I love cornbread and milk. I've eaten cornbread and buttermilk before, and I wouldn't turn it down if somebody offered it to me. But I think cornbread's real Southern. It's a utensil and a food.
It is. It's a pencil. It is. Oh my gosh. And only out of a cast iron skillet.
Oh yeah,
Skillet.
a
Yeah.
preheated cast iron skillet for sure.
Yeah.
You can. I'll tell you if you want to get the internet worked up, say cast iron skillet and dishwasher in the same sentence.
Oh
And
Lord, clutching pearls.
they
Clutching
they
pearls.
it'll get them. It'll get them every time. I almost feel cheap doing it because it's like a cheap trick.
Okay, singer/celebrity.
It's just Dolly Parton.
Okay, I knew you were going to say Dolly Parton.
I
I'm gonna say
know,
Loretta
I-
Lynn.
Oh yeah, Loretta Lynn. I mean, we've got so many. There's just so many.
There's
Even
too
from
many.
my own town, like there's so many good, famous singers and celebrities. Like we got Parker Posey from Laurel. We've got Aaron and
Oh,
Ben
Lord,
Napier,
yes.
all from just this one little town. And that's just one little town. The South is full of talent, and Appalachia's full of talent. Like being with Andy Marie during her podcast, that girl is a box of talent, and it's just
She
like a
is.
side thing. Just casually can do a ton of stuff in the side, and I
Yeah.
think that's part of our culture is like just being good at stuff because we got to entertain ourselves.
Yes, I know. Movie.
Still Magnolias.
I love Still Magnolias. Again,
I,
Dolly Parton.
again, and I just think Robert Hurling, I think, believe is his name. I've mispronounced his name before, but I think he just captured it so well. The South is the beauty shop, and it is the women. I feel like the women are
Hmm.
a very strong force here in the South, and we can pretend like our granddad is in charge, but really, who's running the show is your grandma. And I think Still Magnolias captured that so well. Like it just sounds like here. It sounds like I know those ladies. Like I think
Yeah.
they really got it.
Yeah. My movie is Coal Miner's Daughter.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yes, for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Also
Um
very.
yeah, a lot of that was filmed around here too.
I wondered. I was gonna say. I bet that was filmed in your area.
It
It had to have
was.
been.
We're not far from Butcher Holler at all.
Okay.
It's not a far drive, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
holler.
go
You just
ahead.
said the word holler, and we've got to discuss that for a second.
Yes.
So I said holler the other day, and somebody didn't know what I was talking about. I had to explain it. It was ABC News. I said holler too, and they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And I was like, it's like between it's like a place down in between, like a holler. But then also a very funny thing, I'm sure West Virginia, Mountain Mama,
Yeah.
until literally last week, because now there's a commercial that's singing that all the time. And it shows up on when we're
Yes. I've
watching
seen it.
something. And I thought until last week it was West Virginia Mountain Holler and not Mountain Mama. And my whole
Oh.
life I've thought it was Mountain Holler. So I've
Well,
been
that's
singing
okay.
this
It
song.
works.
I know it works. It like seems like a place we should be singing about. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought that was very funny. I was like assigning hollers to things that aren't even
Yeah.
hollers. So it was Mama.
Well, I grew up in a holler, so I mean, a lot of and all my family sort of lived on the same stretch of road down the holler. But it's funny you say that about country roads because John Denver would have been my other, and he's not Appalachian, but we've sort of adopted. I know
Seems
West
like it would be.
Virginia. It seems like he would be, but I think he's originally from Texas, and then he spent most of
Lines
his
up.
time in Colorado.
Those
I think
Texans
he's,
just
but he's South. Yeah,
standing on the line between Southern and Appalachian and Western. They're
but
like right there.
we love John Denver in Appalachia. We
Love
absolutely
John
love
Denver.
him. This is going to be hard.
Okay,
Ryder,
okay.
Ryder.
Ryder. Oh my goodness, that is
I
hard.
know.
Oh, I love to read, and this is strange. Wow, what a question. You have got me stumbling over my words. If you had asked me this years ago, I would have said something different, but I have recently fallen in love with Eudora Welty's descriptions of the South. I think when you learn about her in high school, like we'd read her in high school and in early college, I don't think I had an appreciation for conversation and for linguistics at the time. And now I
Mhm.
love that part of it. And I've recently started reading. I was reading Delta Wedding the other day, and I remember hating that book. I remember just being like, "This is miserable. What is this even about?" And now I feel like I can hear her on the porch saying those things, and it's very beautiful. And I've gotten to travel around the South a little bit more and be in places where she was, and even go to her home. And it's just also very literary, and that it makes
Mhm.
sense why she would describe it the way that she does. And she captures the hotness of it, and the humidity, and
Yeah.
the suffocatingness of the South in so many levels. So I think right now I would say her, but there's so many.
There's so
That's a
many.
hard one. That's
Yeah.
hard for sure.
Yeah, Flannery O'Connor and
Yes.
To Kill a Mockingbird. My mind just went
Harper Lee
blank.
for sure.
Harper Lee,
Harp.
and the
hmm
way that she opens To Kill a Mockingbird and describing the women and comparing them to cakes and
Just immediately, yes.
powder.
Oh, I love
Yes,
that so much.
the way they powder their bodies and it's yeah, so many literary giants and
And then, I
these.
mean, Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire.
Mm,
I think the way he describes Blanche taking a bathing in the afternoon as the
mhm.
activity, and she's in there for hours because it's just too hot to do anything but that. That's really Southern too. I don't know. I wonder if we should like make people revisit those books when you're a little bit older, because I didn't have the same
Yeah.
appreciation for them as I did then, you know?
Yeah. Well, we'll just tell people to do that. Make that your summer
Everybody,
reading
homework.
list.
You got your
Everybody make your
homework.
summer reading list now from these authors. Lee Smith, who lives now in North Carolina, but
Mhm.
she is from Grundy, Virginia, which is just over the mountain from where I'm at right now. I sort of cut my teeth on Lee Smith, and she wrote books like Oral History, Fair and Tender Lady,
Mhm.
Saving Grace. So if you like Eudora Welty, and you'll like
On it.
you should try Lee Smith. Dolly Parton likes Lee Smith, and
Hey, I listen to Dolly Parton. Whatever she says, I'm down for.
Adriana Trigiani, she wrote a novel and made a movie based on my town, Big Stone Gap. That's another one that I
Wow.
would recommend people put on the list. And she
On
also
the list
has
for
a
sure.
book club podcast. Oh, and Ron Rash. I have to say this about Ron Rash, Silas House. I don't know if any of these names are ringing a bell, but these are our
Yeah, I don't know, recognize
Appalachian. This is
him.
our Appalachian reading list.
Okay.
Crystal Wilkinson, and I mean there are so many. There are so many, but Lee Smith is probably the one that I would put
That's where
like
to start. All right.
that's where to start. Superstition.
Ooh, my favorite superstition. Oh, I love. Oh, there's so many. That's hard.
I
That's so hard.
know.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay. At the most basic level, like kind of a boring answer. I love the Haint Blue superstition. I think that's so much fun that because it just means so many things to so many different people. And writing this book was an interesting look into that because when I grew up, I thought that the porches were paint blue to keep the waspers away and to
Hmm.
keep birds from making nests in there. And believe there is some science to that. I'm not sure about that, but I believe that is like part of the reason. But then I was speaking to Natalie and Ron Dice, and they are the parents from the show Gullah Gullah Island in the 90s. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was a great show, and it was Gullah Geechee culture. And they explained to me that that was part of their culture, that they didn't believe that spirits like to cross water. And so they would put that blue color on their columns of their porches or around their door frames or on the door itself. And then it eventually evolved its way to making it to our ceilings. And I just love that. I love
Yes.
how, I mean, I first of all love paint blue. It's a beautiful color, but I just love how it means so many different things to so many different people. And it comes from this one place. I love an exploration into history and like language. And so
Yeah.
that's thrilling to me. But then we have some very silly superstitions that are so like don't cut your hair outside and let it get taken away by a bird, you know, like all those kind of silly things
Hmm.
like that come from origins in hoodoo even. And we didn't even realize it, you know, like don't let the rocking chair keep rocking or it'll invite a ghost to sit in it,
Yes.
you know. And then there's all sorts of superstitions around death, like covering up the mirrors and things of that nature. Close your mouth when you pass the cemetery. There's so many, and they vary from place to place.
Yeah.
And I love to find
I
out about that.
love them.
They're one of my favorite things.
I taught a class. This is going to sound weird, but I actually just came from my class on the rhetoric of death in Appalachia.
Oh, yeah, there could be so many classes on
I
that. I feel
have a
like 'cause
class,
there
yes.
is.
One of my students did a presentation on death crowns. Have you heard of a death crown? It's what you find
No,
in the pillow of a dead person after they pass away
no.
or they're passing.
Wow.
So it's a crown of hair and feathers. If the pillow is a feather pillow, feathers will be embedded, but it's a circle that you find inside the pillow. And it's supposed to be a good message that they're passing on to heaven, or
Wow.
it's considered this supernatural thing. And you can go to these museums and you can see them. Now there's some scientific theories about why that
I'm
happens,
sure.
that when people are dying or they're restless, they waller the pillow so much that hair and feathers, but it's almost like unrealistic because it's such a perfectly made crown of hair and feathers, and you have to tear the pillow apart to get it out. So I don't know how that's possible that that much hair would get in the pillow, but that's called a death crown.
I am thrilled to hear about this. That is
Yes,
fascinating. I
it is
love to learn about
fascinating.
that so much. I think that that's so funny that there's a whole class about it because there could be Southern morbidity and Appalachian morbidity. And I do think there's like a little bit more of the morbidity in Appalachia than there is
Hmm.
even just around the South in general. Is such a thing in our phrases like my grandparents, I'm almost 40 and they've been 1 foot in the grave since I was born, like, and are perfectly healthy, like running farms and stuff, like,
Yeah.
working in the fields and doing all this stuff. And this obsession with morbidity, I wonder about that very much. I wonder where it comes from. Like, even in little pieces of language, I think language tells us so much about people. And like my grandmother said the phrase, I'd have to feel better to die
To die.
one day to
Yeah.
me. And I just was like, wow. Hold,
Yeah.
first of all, let me write that down. That's really
And
good.
that's in
The
your
second,
book.
it is.
That's in your
But
book.
I just wonder what that comes from. Do you think it comes from just the sort of the toughness of life in Appalachia and in the South and being having
Yeah.
to face that? Or what do you think that is?
I don't
With
know.
your research? That's
I've wondered
interesting.
that too because I had my great grandparents until my 30s. I had four living generations around me for most, until I was well into my 30s.
I did too, and
And
that is so rare.
and
It is so rare.
yes, it is rare and it gives you a good glimpse of the life cycle and the timeline of history, and they're able to tell you things
Mhm.
that other people don't have the advantage of hearing about. But my great grandma, my mama, she had a picture hanging on a bedroom wall, and this is one of the places I start with this class because it completely freaks people out. It's a corpse picture. It's death
Mhm.
portraiture. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but
I
people will
am,
take
and we had
pictures
them
at
in my family.
funerals and they will frame it and they will hang it up. But this was from 1920s, and it was my great grandfather's little sister. It's a sad picture because she was only 10. She died of
Yeah.
meningitis, but they propped her up in her casket
Yeah.
and they're standing around, and it's this ginormous oval picture that she kept hanging on the bedroom wall. And I would
Mhm.
say, Mama, it freaked me out when I was a little kid. It freaked me out because
Yeah.
that was the guest bedroom. That's where I slept.
See, I just,
And I would say, Mama, why do you have that on the wall? Why do you have that picture? And anybody that visited would think they'd make her take it down while they slept there because it was so scary for them. And she'd say, well, that's the only picture we have of her. And
yeah.
it's,
And
that was why they kept it on the wall.
I think that is the
Yeah.
case for a lot of those pictures like that. That is the one picture that they have. I grew up seeing a bunch of those in my great grandmother's house.
Hmm.
Maybe not a bunch of them, but there were a few. And actually, it took me a long time to understand what they were. I thought they were just pictures of people because they make them look not dead. They make
Yes.
them look like they're living, and there's people around them. They're propped up. It's a whole thing. That is fascinating. I'm sure there's many students that could do many projects on
Oh,
that type of history because that is
yeah.
a fascinating thing. And then even keeping like locks of hair in the back of the photo and things like that.
Yes, locks of hair in lockets. And they even wove hair wreaths, entire
Hmm.
wreaths to hang on the door made out of hair and
Yes,
jewelry, those kinds of
it's very
things.
Victorian.
Very Victorian. It started in Victorian England. Yes. You mentioned bottle trees in the book, and I have two bottle trees. I have one in the front and one in the
Yes,
back. Yes, I think bottle
you got to
trees
keep
are
it safe.
got to keep it safe. Got a fortress, but for people that don't know, explain what a bottle tree is.
Well, and I will say, when I first, bottle trees kind of hit real big in Laurel like a decade or so ago, maybe even longer than that. And everybody was getting a bottle tree. And I don't think we even really knew what it was. I think it was just like a decoration type of a thing, but I'd seen them before. And bottle trees, but they would be only with blue bottles.
Hmm.
Now you'll see them with lots of different colored bottles. The
Yeah.
ones from when I was much younger, going to visit my great aunts and those kinds of people, their bottle trees were real trees with blue bottles stuck on the ends of the limbs. And from what I understood from it, they were capturing the spirits inside that bottle, and then
Hmm.
when the sun would come out, it would evaporate them or something like that along the way. So it was basically just a hedge of protection around your home, similar to the haint blue paint, keeping those spirits away, keeping the
Yeah.
haints away, and taking care of them. I think that's there's bottle trees all down this road, and I don't think
Hmm.
that they know why they have the bottle
Why
tree.
they're
I think
there.
they
They're
just
just
think it
pretty.
was like an art thing.
Yeah. It is an artistic thing, but it does keep the haints away. And for people that don't know what a haint is,
Oh
we're talking
yeah.
about a ghost. It's a variation of haunt. We're talking about a ghost. In Appalachia, it's also have not. I haint. I hain't been
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
hain't I hain't got dinner ready yet. I don't think you'd use it like that as much, but
I don't
I
think I've
hain't
heard
been
it used
home
that
yet.
way.
Yes, but it's got an apostrophe in there, so hain't
Okay.
the
We will
noun
throw an
is just
apostrophe in there. That
hain't the
one
noun is
and
just
Ewan's, I feel like Ewan's is very Appalachian. I don't hear
yuns.
that as much here. That's really Appalachian. One
Yuns
thing you
and
said though,
yens. Farther north you
Yes.
go, it's yins.
Okay. Andy Marie said yins to me. So
Did she?
yes, she said yins thought you was roommates. And I was like, I heard you say that. I know, I heard you slip that in there. Another word that you said that neither of us blinked at earlier, and it just seemed like the regular word to say was wallering.
Wallering.
You said they were
Yes.
wallering on the pillow. And yeah, we're wallering so down
We're
here
wallering.
sometimes. And it's just a regular word. I wonder if that's everywhere, if that's just us.
You
It
tell her.
seems like it might be just us.
I know. It's a good artful word, though. It works.
It is. It is.
Have you ever heard of a corpse bird?
A
I
corpse
think
bird.
you
I don't.
mentioned this, though. You didn't call it that, but I think you mentioned a bird calling 3 times or a bird.
Oh, yes.
Did you mention it in the book?
And even cardinals being a spirit of your
Messengers.
ancestors in your yard coming to check in on you, that type of a thing. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely bird stuff.
Birds flying in the house freak me out.
It'll cause the
Because I
panic.
have cats and they'll bring them in still alive and they'll fly around. I don't know if that counts. I think it has to fly in on its own for it to count.
Well, I know people that get upset when the cats bring a bird in the house. Like they really did get upset. I had an Aunt Lily, and she got real upset about that one time, and I was so surprised because I didn't know the lore. I didn't know the lore behind it. But yeah, people get real upset about birds being in the house. That's not
If I tell my mom
acceptable.
there's been a bird in the house, she'll say, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it.
Ignore it. We're not going to think about it.
It's always a little thing that's there. I don't know if many people down your way talk about having the sight, but my mama would say she knew when somebody was going to die, that she had visions or dreams and they were standing at the foot of her bed.
I have not heard the phrase "the sight" in so long. Yes, that is such a blast from the past. I love to have heard that. That comes back from like sitting up with the dead in the living room, even like that. That's that kind of talk. My goodness, wow, that's fun. I love remembering and hearing things like that.
Yeah. And circling back to writers, that's why, I love literature and I love Appalachian literature and Southern literature too, because all the stuff we're talking about is in there. And that's one of the wonderful reasons for those works, because it preserves it, and
preserves the language and the customs. And I think if you don't approach it from that aspect, though, it's hard to understand a lot of them, But when you come at it from that angle, it's also thrilling.
I don't know if this ever happened to you, but when I read Lee Smith, it wasn't until college that I discovered her in a class called Appalachian Prose and Poetry. And it was the first time I had read a book where the characters sounded like me. They sounded like me, and I saw the words in print that I was using, and I felt validated. I felt, I felt seen, and I thought, oh my goodness. And then I realized there's a whole field of study about this. And that was my turning point really into language. Just
similar for me. My American literature class, when we started getting into Faulkner really heavily, I was like, wait a second. Wait a second. I think I know what this is talking about. And that was really very special. It's very special to get to have an education like that and get to explore things in that way.
I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much for this. This was so much fun. We've got to do this again in the future and have much longer time.
Definitely will. And I want to say to the listeners, tell your mama and them to listen to our podcast and go get the book.
That's how I end mine. I say, tell your mom and them I said hello and love you, let y'all go.
All right.
Bye.
You take care. Bye-bye.